At a lavish gathering, a shocking proposal changed everything. Discover how I found 207 million. Michael Lawson stepped into a world that sparkled inside with wealth. The elegant ballroom shimmered with golden chandeliers, each reflecting a piece of the elite's lives filled with laughter and clinking glasses. For a modest mechanic from Atlanta, it felt like a dream. His hands, calloused from years of tightening bolts and fixing engines, brushed against the pristine fabric of his rented suit. He felt out of place, a ship lost in the sea of sophistication. As he wandered through the throng of the Carters' charity gala, Michael's heart raced. The Carters, a family who had always treated him like kin, had raised him up during his darkest days. He hoped his presence would be their honor, but as he stood among the wealthy, he felt the invisible barriers that existed between them. Each snicker, each raised eyebrow whispered of status, of privilege. He could feel their eyes flicking over him, sizing him up like he was a curiosity, something they didn't quite know how to handle. "Have you heard about the new development proposal at Lakeview Park?" one well-dressed woman said, her voice dripping with enthusiasm. "It's going to bring prosperity to our community." Michael's stomach twisted. He didn't want to believe it. He had spent his whole life in the suburbs, watching families struggle, children cry when they had nowhere to play. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle began to come together, a project that promised jobs and wealth, but at the expense of people's homes and the environment. He overheard others chime in, excited about the potential for new investments. It was like they were stuck in a bubble, blind to the reality outside. His palms began to sweat, and with a tight chest, he gathered his courage. When he opened his mouth to speak, words caught in his throat. "Excuse me, but..." The room turned towards him, a wave of skepticism washing over the crowd, as if he had just belched during a prayer. "What would you know about it?" one young man sneered, adjusting his designer cufflinks. "This isn't your world." Each word stung like ice, reminding him just how out of place he was. But just then, something caught his eye across the room, a worn, tattered diary left on a table. Inquisitively, he approached, fingers trembling as he opened it. Scanning its pages, he uncovered a truth about his father's hidden legacy, a forgotten war hero whose sacrifices shaped that very land. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes. This was more than just land. It was about family, roots, and community. With renewed passion, Michael stood up on a chair. "This land, it's part of us." His voice echoed loud and clear, cutting through the noise like a bolt of lightning. "You want an investment? That money you're drooling over? It's not just numbers, it's lives." The crowd quieted, the room hung on his every word. Hope flowed through him, a force he couldn't contain. "These aren't just properties, they're homes. What about the families that will be pushed out?" "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The murmurs of the crowd shifted. Doubt and disdain began to fade, replaced by unexpected support among his fellow gala-goers. The atmosphere thickened with possibilities, and for the first time he felt like he was truly being seen. Yet the tension crackled like static air. How could he bring all of this together? As the gala began to split between allies and opponents, one number hovered in Michael's mind: 207 million. Not just a figure, but a representation of their hopes, dreams, and his community's future. If he could rally the fight and connect the dots, maybe he could turn the tides. Standing tall, Michael took a deep breath, knowing he had one chance to bridge the gap. Would he be able to rally his neighbors and confront the developers with truth? Or would they all slip back into the comfortable shadows of silence? The tension in the ballroom simmered as Michael stood atop the chair, his heart pounding hard enough to echo in his ears. He searched the sea of faces, desperate for one flicker of understanding. With every heartbeat, he felt the weight of his father's legacy pressing down on him, urging him to break through the thin veneer of wealth and privilege. "Do you even understand what it means to lose a home?" he pressed, his voice rising over the murmurs. "These aren't just properties to grab and redevelop. They are stories, memories, lives intertwined." The trees, the playgrounds, they are not just land. They are the heart of our community. A woman in a shimmering gown stepped forward. Leaning in, curiosity etched on her face. But what can we do? It's a done deal, isn't it? How can we change anything? Michael drew a deep breath, recalling the countless faces of families he had seen packing their lives into boxes, leaving homes behind because of a notice taped to their doors. We can voice our outrage. We can show them we're not just a statistic nor a hurdle to overcome. The crowd was starting to shift. Murmurs started to turn into conversations. Michael saw the glimmers of hope igniting like sparks. We need to stand together. We can fight for what's right. If we find a way to connect the right people, if we can rally our friends and neighbors, but who will listen to us? Another voice cut through, skeptical yet inquisitive. Look at the power of this room. Michael gestured to his surroundings. You're the leaders, the influencers. You can shape opinions. Let us make them hear our stories. Let us start a movement. Waves of chatter began to swell. Faces flickered with reflections of conviction and doubt, but Michael would not break. He leaned deeper into his passion, his eyes glistening with fervor. Together we make an impact. We're more than a project or a profit. We're a community, and together we are unstoppable. Suddenly, a voice rose from the far corner, claiming attention like a bolt from the blue. How about we make it a community project? One that invests in preservation and development, where we can invest in small businesses, not just big money. The room buzzed with excitement and new ideas. Michael smiled, hope swelling within him as he saw eyes light up. As the conversations morphed from one possibility to another, Michael felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Miss Carter, the matriarch of the family who had hosted the gala. Her eyes were bright with determination. Michael, I believe in what you're saying. I know how much this community means to you. You should lead this fight. His breath caught in his throat, heart racing. It was one thing to speak passionately, but to lead? You are a voice for those who feel they don't have one. You are the bridge between worlds. Together we can change public opinion. Her words washed over him, a balm for his doubts. He nodded, resolve solidifying within him. This was more than just a battle over land. It was about the lives that were woven into the very fabric of the community he loved. He could see the path forward now, but it wouldn't be easy. With the weight of potential and responsibility on his shoulders, he felt fear mingle with excitement as the group began to form around him. Buzzing with ideas of change, Michael felt himself step into a role he had never imagined. He glanced at the tattered diary, still in hand, a reminder of who he was fighting for. They had a chance. But the road wouldn't be simple, and Michael knew the opposition would not sit idly by. Together we're just starting, but what comes next? Can we really turn this fight into a victory for the souls of our community? Michael questioned softly to himself, looking out at passionate faces lit by the promise of change, fear tingling at the back of his mind. What would they face when the developers retaliated? Would the community stand strong? The answers loomed, as uncertain as the future itself. The noise in the ballroom had transformed. What had once been the sound of skepticism was now a chorus of urgency. Michael could feel the energy swirling around him, igniting sparks of change. He stepped off the chair, grounding himself in the shifting crowd, where hope and determination began to intertwine. Let us meet tomorrow. A man shouted, a prominent businessman from the community. I want to see how we can really make this happen. A ripple of agreement followed, an unspoken pact forming among the gathered guests. They stood for something greater than themselves, a community determined to resist the tide of progress that threatened to wash away their history. As conversations erupted, Michael felt the adrenaline surge within him. He could hardly keep up with the ideas flying through the air: strategies for speeches, outreach to local media, ways to engage the younger generation. Every suggestion felt like a bullet of optimism, striking against the dark clouds looming overhead. Miss Carter remained by his side, her presence a steady reminder of the commitment they were making. We can start by reaching out to local journalists, she suggested. This needs to be in the papers. People need to hear the stories of those who are losing their homes. Michael nodded, enthusiasm shining through his apprehension. And we can create a social media campaign. People are more likely to pay attention if they see their neighbors sharing their experiences. A group of younger attendees jumped in, their eyes sparkling with excitement. They were ready to mobilize their friends, using hashtags to spread their message like wildfire. In that moment, Michael understood the weight of leadership, the ability to bring others together under a shared vision. As the night wore on, their plans took shape. They set dates for meetings and outlined action points. But beneath the excitement lay a threat of uncertainty. The developers wouldn't simply step back. They would fight back, armed with legal teams and deep pockets. Michael tried to shake off the nagging doubt. As guests began to leave, the atmosphere shifted again. The vibrant discussions faded, leaving behind a hollow reminder of what lay ahead. Michael stood outside the venue, the cool night air wrapping around him like a cloak. His heart raced as he looked out onto the darkened street. "Did we make a difference tonight?" he whispered to Miss Carter, who stood next to him, her silhouette illuminated by the street lamp. "You did more than that," she replied, her voice steady. "You stirred something that had been dormant for too long. People are ready to listen." Just then Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and stared at the screen. An unexpected message flashed before him. A local news reporter, someone he had only spoken to in passing, was asking for an interview. When he read the message, a mix of disbelief and excitement surged through him. "Miss Carter!" he exclaimed, nearly dropping his phone. "They want to cover our movement. This could give us the exposure we need." She smiled, pride dancing in her eyes. "This is just the beginning, Michael. But be prepared. When you rise, there will be those who want to tear you down." Michael nodded, the reality sinking in. He felt inspired, yes, but the weight of the challenge pressed harder than before. With every step forward came the risk of backlash. "What if they come after us?" he asked, suddenly fearful. "What if this backfires?" Miss Carter placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Then we will stand strong as a community. Remember, every journey worth taking is paved with doubt, but it's also lit by hope." As he looked out into the night, he knew he couldn't turn back now. Not when so much was at stake. The community had begun to trust him, and for the first time, he felt a stirring of courage inside him. But as the darkness enveloped them, a new question loomed in his mind. Would they be ready for the storm that was coming? Would they be able to withstand the pressure when the developers finally struck back? The answers felt just out of reach, leaving him teetering on the edge of anticipation, eager for what lay ahead. The next morning dawned with an unsettled energy that stirred in Michael's chest. As he lay awake, he could hear the hum of life outside, cars rushing by, birds chirping. But beneath it all was an undercurrent of anxiety that buzzed like a struck match. He sat up, his mind racing with thoughts of the meeting that afternoon. He dressed quickly, throwing on his favorite shirt, the one that made him feel somehow more confident, as if it could alter his reality. As he arrived at their usual coffee shop, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sweet perfume of pastries, but the comfort of the atmosphere was overshadowed by the tension in Michael's stomach inside. He spotted Miss Carter and a few others already gathered at their usual table. The sunlight streamed in, casting warm light on their faces, but they looked serious. Michael could see the flicker of determination mixed with fear in their eyes. "Good morning, everyone," he said, trying to muster enthusiasm, but it came out muted. They nodded, some with forced smiles. The weight of the previous night lingered like a heavy fog, a reminder of the challenge ahead. Miss Carter caught his eye. "We're ready to brainstorm," she said, her tone a blend of reassurance and urgency. "But we need a clear strategy to tackle the developers knee-deep in this mess. We need all hands on deck." As the group began to outline strategies, Michael felt the adrenaline start to kick in again. He listened as they brainstormed ideas for petition drives and community forums, filling the air with ideas that, for the moment, felt revolutionary. "Let us not underestimate the power of storytelling," Miss Carter suggested. "We need to highlight individual stories from the community, people who are at risk of losing their homes due to these developments. We can gather videos and testimonials, share personal narratives that resonate." The packed coffee shop buzzed around them, but Michael felt a bubble of focus encase their table. It was electric. It was real. Just as they were wrapping up, a familiar figure entered. David, the local reporter who had texted Michael the night before. He approached, his demeanor confident. "I heard you all might have a considerable news story," he said, flashing a knowing smile. "Can I join?" Michael's heart skipped a beat. This was big. He motioned for David to sit down. We're organizing a movement against the developers. We need to come together and support each other. As he spoke, ideas flowed like water from a spout. Michael could see the excitement draining away David's initial hesitance. He was listening intently, nodding, jotting down notes. People need to see this as a fight for more than just property, Michael pushed on, the words rushing out. It's about community, about culture, about standing up for the very fabric of who we are. David looked up, his eyes gleaming. This could be huge. I want to help amplify your voices. If we can capture the essence of the struggle, we could reach thousands. Michael's heart surged with a powerful mix of hope and fear. This was their chance. What they had been fighting for could actually gain momentum. He felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a cloak of armor. But just as their spirits began to elevate, a piercing phone call shattered the moment. Michael's attention snapped back to reality when his phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize, but something in his gut urged him to answer. "Hello?" he said, his voice shaky. A voice on the other end was urgent, almost frantic. "Michael, you need to know there are changes happening with the developers. Things are getting serious. You're in their sights now." Fear danced in Michael's stomach, but so did determination. The fight was just beginning, and he could not back down now. In that moment he understood that they were not just defending their homes, but sparking a movement, one that could resonate far beyond their little town. But could they withstand the pressure? Would their voices be enough to rattle the forces against them? The horizon felt charged with uncertainty, and Michael knew he had to lead them into the storm. Michael's heart raced as he disengaged from the call. He looked around the table, trying to gauge the reactions of his friends. The cafe's comforting energy had morphed into something fierce and urgent. The moment hung thick in the air, weighed down by the implications of that call. "What was that?" Miss Carter asked, her eyes darting to Michael's face, searching for a clue, for something she could latch onto. "It was a warning," he admitted, swallowing hard. "The developers are getting restless. They're making moves that could really threaten us." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the group. David leaned in closer, his interest piqued. "What do you mean? Have they gone so far as to target us?" Michael cut him off, the rising tide of fear melding with resolve. "To push back harder? Yeah, that's exactly it." Silence enveloped the table for a moment, heavy with the weight of the new reality. Michael could see the inner struggle reflected on each face around him. They were grappling with the cold truth that their efforts were being met with fierce resistance. "Well, we can't back down now," Miss Carter finally said, her voice strong but shaken. "This is a communal fight. We'll gather more stories. Turn up the heat, show the world what they're fighting against." As the determination began to flow, so did a wave of ideas. They sprang forth like fireworks, igniting the flame of their fighting spirit once again. "Let us organize a town hall meeting," someone suggested. "Invite the press. We need to make our voices heard loud and clear." "That's it," David chimed in, scribbling furiously. "Bring the history into it, how this community has been built over years. Show what these developments would tear apart." Ideas flew back and forth like rapid fire, an exclamation point punctuating their discussions. The coffee shop faded to the background as their shared energy fueled a fervor of resilience. But as visions of unity flashed in Michael's mind, doubt crept in again. They were going against giants, behemoths of industry, and these were merely dreams without the necessary resources. A soft voice broke his train of thought. "Michael." It was Jenna, who had been quiet until now. "What if we reach out to people from other neighborhoods? Other groups facing similar threats? Maybe there's power in numbers." Her words hung in the air, and the group exchanged glances of realization. An expansive network could give them strength. "Imagine a coalition," David murmured, clearly outlining the enormous potential. "Voices from every corner, each telling their story. That kind of collective could move mountains." Michael felt his pulse quicken at the idea. The notion of building a broader alliance, a community standing side by side, it was intoxicating. But then doubt settled again, heavy and still. "Who would want to join us?" he asked, half challenging, half hopeless. Silence fell. They all stared blankly into their cups, the initial excitement wavering. But then Jenna said, "People want to belong. They want their stories to matter. If we tell people we need them, they'll come." A surge ignited in the group at her words. Michael's heart beat in sync with newfound determination. They might not have resources, but perhaps they could be the spark that ignited a fire across town. As they began to rally around this concept, the energy in the coffee shop intensified. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing everything in brilliant light, as if the universe was aligning with their mission. But just as they began strategizing the next steps, David's phone buzzed, a reminder of pressing deadlines. He looked up, a hint of worry flickering in his eyes. We have to act fast. Whoever's in their sights might already be feeling the pressure. Are you all in? Yes. The chorus wrapped around Michael, igniting his spirit further. He felt now that he wasn't just sparking change but building something bigger than himself. Yet uncertainty loomed. He could feel it like a storm on the horizon. What consequences would follow? What risks were they about to take? Together they put their plans in motion for the town hall, but Michael had a nagging feeling that there was more waiting in the wings. As they exited the coffee shop, the weight of their ambition wrapped around them tightly. They were stepping into the unknown, and Michael couldn't shake the feeling that a turning point was upon them. But would their united front truly be powerful enough? And what dangers awaited them as they rallied a chorus of voices? The answer lay just beyond the next corner, waiting to reveal itself. The next morning, the town hall meeting loomed large in Michael's mind. It wasn't just a meeting. It felt like a battleground where lives could change, where dreams could be either snuffed out or ignited. Bright sunlight streamed through his window, but the warmth did little to ease the cold knot in his stomach. He paced his small apartment, rehearsing his speech in his mind. Each word had to have weight, each inflection crafted expertly to resonate. The stakes were high, and he could feel the pressure pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. His phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was Jenna. Michael, have you thought about who we should invite? Yeah, he replied, gripping the phone tightly. I was thinking local activists, business owners, everyone who has a stake in our community. Good idea, Jenna said, her voice bright with determination. But we need stories, Michael. Real stories that show what's at risk. We need faces, emotions. People need to feel it. Michael nodded, even though she couldn't see him. Right. Stories. He recalled the faces of his neighbors. The elderly couple down the street whose garden had been there since before he was born. The young mother struggling to keep her small business afloat amidst rising rent. Each story was a thread in the rich tapestry of their community, and it was time to weave them together. After hanging up, he spent the day visiting neighbors, sitting on stoops and sipping tea in kitchens. Each conversation brought out heartwarming memories intertwined with the fear of losing everything they had built. That evening, he sat at the kitchen table, bright-eyed and hopeful. Michael, the old man's voice echoed in his thoughts. This community has a spirit that can't be broken. We just need to show them. With every story he collected, his resolve solidified. People began to rally around the idea, sharing their stories and helping him prepare for the meeting. Michael felt the tide turning. The sun dipped low as he arrived at the town hall that night, a buzz of anxious energy in the air. He could see the familiar faces: Miss Carter, David, and Jenna, each of them carrying their own burden of hopes and dreams. As the meeting commenced, energy surged from the podium. Michael could hardly contain his excitement. Standing there, he felt like a conductor leading a symphony. His heart beat in rhythm with the murmurs of the crowd, with every shared laugh and muffled cry. Thank you all for being here tonight, he began, his voice steady but charged. This is about more than just buildings. It's about our lives, our stories. If they tear down our homes, they are tearing apart our community. The room responded. A wave of claps and murmurs rose up, feeding his confidence. Michael watched as he recounted each heartfelt tale: the families, the lost milestones, the laughter shared over barbecues in backyards now threatened with gentrification. As the meeting continued, Michael caught a glimpse of the crowd's rapt faces. Hope flickered in their eyes. He spoke passionately, championing the collective strength they had uncovered. Together we can rise. Together we can fight this. When he finished, the applause echoed like thunder. It was as if a dam had burst open, releasing pent-up emotions from the community, and one by one, people stood to share their stories. But then silence fell. A man in a crisp suit rose from the back of the room, an imposing figure that cut through the newfound exhilaration. I represent the developers you're all so concerned about. He began slowly, and a chill swept through the air. What could he possibly have to say? Michael thought, heart racing. I have a proposition, the man continued, looking around the room with calculated calm. And hearing you all tonight has changed my perspective. Michael's breath caught in his throat. What did this man want? Would his words extinguish the flickering fire they'd just ignited? Or could something unexpected unfold? The room tensed as all eyes turned towards the stranger, curiosity swelling with apprehension. What was this man about to propose? And how would it shape the battle they had just begun? Michael knew one thing. The outcome of this moment could change everything he had fought for. The heart of their community hung in the balance, and he felt the weight of hope and fear colliding within him. Would this be the lifeline they needed? Or would it shatter their dreams? The tension was palpable, and for a moment time stood still. Michael's heart raced as he stared at the man in the pristine suit, his mind racing with possibilities. The tension hung thick in the room, an electric charge that turned anxious breaths into a palpable wave. Every set of eyes fixated on the man, each face a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The man cleared his throat, his expression schooled into a neutral mask. I'm not here to take everything from you. Instead, I want to listen. What if we could preserve the true essence of this community while also allowing for development? Whispers broke out around the room. Confusion painted several faces. Michael felt the weight of the moment on his shoulders. Was this a trick? He remembered the stories of friends losing their homes. They couldn't simply let this man co-opt their dreams. What do you mean preserve? Jenna interjected, her voice firm and steady. We've seen developers come in with promises that are all talk and no action. How can we trust you? The man nodded, respecting her challenge. I understand your skepticism, and I want to earn your trust. This proposal is about compromise, something that respects your stories, your history. Michael leaned forward. What kind of compromise was he suggesting? His throat felt dry. And what do you want in return? He asked, cutting through the tension like a blade. Investment in community programs, enhancements to your public spaces. Maybe an annual fund to support local businesses, the man replied, his voice smooth but insistent. Michael could see hope flickering like a candle in the crowd. Some seemed to consider it sounded good on paper. But doubt lingered like a shadow. And where does that money come from? He pressed, unwilling to let his guard down so easily. From the development project, the man stated, his voice unwavering. But I'm aware it comes at a cost to you. I want to ensure that the community gets a say in how these developments work. You'll have seats at the table. The murmurs grew, and Michael could feel the stirring emotions around him, hope battling skepticism. The old couple who had tended their garden for decades exchanged glances, weighing the possibilities. The young mother's brow furrowed in thought. Could they really trust someone like him? I'm not trying to erase the spirit of this place, the man continued, catching the eye of each person in the room. I'm an outsider, yes, but I also see a city brimming with potential. Let us work together, and we can create something that benefits all of us. Michael's mind raced. In that moment he realized they had the upper hand. Will you pledge that no one will lose their home during this process? He asked, raising the stakes. The man paused as if considering. If I can influence it, yes. I can guarantee that. The room went still, each heartbeat echoing in the silence. Hopeful whispers began weaving through the crowd, new possibilities blooming like spring flowers after winter. Let us focus our energy on this proposal, Michael finally said, feeling a surge of determination. We'll hold you accountable, but we have to act. This isn't just a negotiation. It's a lifeline. With those words, the crowd erupted into discussion. It was exhilarating to witness people talking about a future where their stories would matter, where their dreams could survive. The emotions sparked around him like fireworks, igniting the air with hope and passion. But just as the atmosphere seemed to illuminate with possibility, the man quietly revealed a detail that froze Michael in place. You should know, though, committing to this means making hard choices. It won't be easy. That statement sank into the room like a stone, darkening the light that had just begun to break through. Michael could feel the weight of the decisions ahead. Would they forge ahead with this tenuous truce? What sacrifices might they have to make? He felt a chill creep back, the tension shifting once again as doubt crept in. What were they willing to lose to gain what they desired? As the discussion swirled around him, Michael looked at the man standing at the front, wariness. Returning. With stakes high and so much on the line, would they be able to find a balance? Or would this proposal unravel everything they had? The next chapter of their quest was unfolding, weaving threads of hope with uncertainty. What would they choose and at what cost? Michael's heart pounded in his chest as whispers filled the room, charged with uncertainty. Eager faces turned to him, seeking direction. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their hopes resting on his shoulders. This was not just a meeting. It was a turning point. Hard choices, huh? Michael finally spoke, trying to hold his voice steady despite the tremor running through it. What do you mean by that? Are we supposed to give something up to make this work? The suited man's gaze was unwavering. Every development asks for sacrifice, he replied. But those sacrifices don't have to come at the cost of your community's heart. Jenna scoffed softly, shaking her head. That sounds nice, but when push comes to shove, what's stopping this place from being turned into some faceless commercial colony? The room buzzed with unease. Michael sensed frustration simmering just beneath the surface. The old couple, once hopeful, exchanged worried glances. The young mother, who had seemed optimistic moments before, now clenched her fists. Look, he interjected, raising his voice above the growing dissent. We've all seen what happens when money moves in. Our homes, our stories, everything gets swallowed whole. If this is a genuine offer, we need it clear. What does sacrifice look like for us? The developer studied the crowd, shifting slightly as if gauging their collective mood. It might mean changes to certain areas, perhaps repurposing some buildings to fit a new vision. But I promise, he added, I will not allow anyone to be displaced under my watch. Promises? Someone shouted from the back. What do those mean when you're long gone? Michael's heart sank. He could feel the division deepening. Hope and fear danced an intricate waltz in their faces. It occurred to him that they might be standing on the front lines of a war, not just for their homes, but who they were. He took another breath, trying to find the words. If we go forward with this, we need binding agreements. Guarantees. We can't risk losing our community for vague assurances. Nobody should have to endure displacement, not now, not ever. The suited man nodded, but there was an edge to his confidence. That's fair. But also, understand this: if you fall too far into fear, you might miss an opportunity for transformation. The community can thrive along with your homes. We just need to be willing to embrace change. Michael's fists clenched at his sides. Transformation comes at a cost, too. How do we know something good will emerge from this change? The air crackled with tension, uncertainty thick as fog. He could see fire flickering in some eyes. Others looked lost. Would they find a common ground? Or had the chance slipped through their fingers already? A profit-driven development might not favor families like ours, Jenna said, her voice filled with concern. We're not just numbers on a spreadsheet. The man appeared momentarily taken aback, but then recognized her sincerity. True, he nodded slowly. Our past doesn't need to dictate our future. If we listen and collaborate, this can be a new chapter. Your stories can be part of the vision, not just a footnote. But at what cost? An elder voice rang out, quavering but strong. Is it even possible? The room fell silent again as he spoke. Tension wound tighter around them like a noose. Michael searched the crowd, and he knew they were standing at a precipice. With hope and fear locked in fierce combat, how could they ever find the path forward? As conversations resumed, heated and uncertain, one main question hung in the air like a storm cloud: would they believe enough in this dream to take the leap? Or would they let fear dictate their lives once more? Just then, amid the swell of voices, the suited man dropped another bombshell. And finally, I should mention my funding is contingent on a quick decision. You have 2 weeks to come to an agreement. Michael felt a jolt, the walls closing in with the weight of time. How would they ever navigate this web of uncertainty and make the right choice for their community? The decision loomed like a shadow, dark and looming. What would they sacrifice, and could they hold on to their dreams while moving forward? The road ahead was fraught with peril, yet somewhere buried beneath was a flicker of hope. Was it enough to light their way? The murmurs hung heavy in the air, rippling through the crowd. Michael felt as if he were standing on shifting sands. The implications of the developer's revelation rattled deep within him. 2 weeks. It wasn't enough time to settle on what felt like a life-altering choice. He glanced around the room, searching for support, but the faces around him mirrored his own confusion. What do we even do with this information? Jenna's voice trembled as she looked to Michael for guidance. We can't just jump into something like this without knowing more. Sacrifices, transformations, it's all so abstract. The old couple in the corner shook their heads, their expressions a mix of anxiety and concern. One of the younger men, typically the most optimistic, leaned back in his chair, studying the floor as if hoping to draw wisdom from it. The division was palpable, seeping into every corner of the room. Let us think this through, Michael urged, desperation creeping into his tone. What do we want to keep, and what are we willing to change if it means preserving our community? We need to list our priorities. Priorities? Jenna shot back. What if the priorities of the developer don't line up with ours? What if our priorities don't even make the list? Exactly. The old man interjected, we risk losing it all for something that may never come to pass. We could end up homeless or worse, watching our dreams fade away. As the tension swirled, Michael began to piece together a plan. How about we form a committee? We can gather everyone's voices, write down what changes we can tolerate, and what we absolutely won't stand for. Jenna nodded, her brow furrowed but her eyes glimmering with a hint of hope. That essay start. We all deserve a say in our future. No one should have to go through this alone. We can work together. Then, as if taking a deep breath to steady the storm, Michael realized something vital. And we need to think about what we can get from this: a community center, parks, funding for schools. If we can come together with a solid vision, we can negotiate harder. The murmurs shifted. Slowly, what had felt like an insurmountable wall began to crack, revealing a pathway forward. Ideas sparked like fireworks around the room. Voices that had been swallowed by fear began to rise. Let us gather families for a town hall meeting tomorrow. A woman called out, her voice clear and strong. Let us hear from everyone, and take time to craft our demands if we want to go down this road. Agreed. Let us make a list of what we want to fight for. Michael encouraged, feeling fire rekindle in the room. The rhythm of anxious hearts morphing into a steady beat of determination invigorated him. But as the crowd rallied, another worry crept in. Was it possible they could create their plan in just 2 weeks? Time was running out, and the clock felt like a looming shadow over their aspirations. Remember, no matter what happens, we must stick together. Michael reminded them as discussions continued. We have each other's backs, and we must protect our bonds. As a sense of solidarity emerged, the fear remained an ever-looming presence that settled around them like a mist. Could this group of disparate voices truly unite and hold their ground against the oncoming storm? Weeks turned into days. The gravity of their choices weighed heavily on Michael, and time ticked away as he orchestrated the assembly of hearts and minds. The stakes had never felt higher, and with every passing hour, the urgency built. With the sun setting behind him, casting a warm glow on the faces of his neighbors, Michael vowed silently to himself that he wouldn't let fear dictate their future. But as they prepared for their pivotal meeting, a shadow of doubt slipped into his mind. What if their fight put everything they had at stake? As tension mounted, he had to confront the deepest question within him: what if their dreams came at an unspeakable price? The night deepened, and so did the urgency of their mission. As everyone buzzed with ideas, Michael caught a glimpse of a flickering light at the end of the tunnel. Was it hope or merely a mirage? He took a deep breath, bracing for the challenges ahead. The town hall meeting was only a day away, and he felt the exhilarating pulse of possibility, or the imminent threat of failure. As he sat back reflecting on the path they had chosen, one thought nagged at him: would their voices be enough to bend the future? Or would they crumble under the weight of impossible choices? The day of the town hall meeting arrived with the weight of 1,000 expectations. Michael stood outside the venue, his heart pounding in sync with the chatter of his neighbors. Each face he recognized wore a mixture of hope and anxiety, a tapestry of stories woven together by shared dreams and fears. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the building, enriching their purpose under its warm glow. I can't believe we're really doing this, Jenna said as she approached, her eyes shining with determination. No turning back now, huh? No turning back, Michael echoed, feeling that electric charge in the air once more. Inside, the hall buzzed, the scent of fresh coffee mixed with the faint rustle of papers. The crowd filled seats, brimming with anticipation. Michael took a deep breath as he stepped onto the stage, acknowledging the expectant faces before him. "Thank you all for coming out tonight," he began, his voice steady and clear. "Today we stand not just for ourselves, but for every family, every story that makes this community unique. Together we will decide what our future looks like." A ripple of applause surged through the room, a collective heartbeat that ignited Michael's spirit. He spoke about their gathering over the last weeks, about the stories shared and the connections forged. With each detail he shared, he could see the reactions, nods, murmurs of agreement, sparks of recognition. They were ready for change. "Today we tackle not just the proposal put forward by the developers, but also the fears that have held us hostage for too long," he continued, feeling the energy shift. "This is our moment. To demand clarity, to demand justice," he urged, the words resonating deeply. The atmosphere shifted from uncertainty to determination, as if they could physically grasp the air thick with promise. Next, a local activist stood. With passion ignited, she shared her story of watching her neighborhood decline. "I've seen families leave who fought tooth and nail to stay. We need to redefine progress, to reclaim what it means to develop. It's about people, not profits." The crowd surged with energy, calling out their agreements, their urgency echoing against the walls. People began to rise one by one, sharing their stories, their fears, their resolve. Each tale added weight to their collective purpose, creating a shared tapestry that formed the foundation of their resistance. As Michael listened, pride swelled in his chest. The threads of their community had woven together stronger than ever before. He felt a flicker of hope igniting in his soul, flourishing amidst the challenges they faced. It was time for the developer's representative to address the crowd. The suited man stepped to the front, confidence radiating. Yet Michael sensed the anticipation thickening, as if every participant was ready to determine the fate of their homes. "Thank you for sharing your thoughts. As I said, I believe in collaboration." The man paused, casting a glance around the hall. "But we have to recognize the needs for growth. There are opportunities that we can create." A voice interrupted the proceedings, a sharp outcry from the back. "What about us? What do you propose that truly protects our homes?" Michael's heart raced as the room erupted into dialogue, people calling out objections, proposals rising like guffaws in a charged atmosphere. He felt the urgency settle in fiercely. They need their demands articulated and fast. "Let us create a committee tonight," Michael yelled, rising above the din, his voice cutting through the chatter like a stream flowing downhill. "A group dedicated to negotiating on our behalf, to ensure our voices are heard, to hold these developers accountable." That call seemed to galvanize them. Heads nodding, agreement rippling through the crowd. And then, like a lightning bolt striking the heart of the storm, that glimmer of hope ignited into a bonfire. The elderly couple who had tended their garden for decades stood, expressing their thoughts. "We'll be on that committee. We've lived through hard times. We can help. Bring history to the forefront." "Me too," called a young mother, choking back tears. "Let us protect our stories. Let us inscribe them in the path we're building." The room burst into applause. Michael felt warmth flooding through him, thrill and fear melding as he realized their dreams were within reach. As the chaos settled again, the developer spoke, newfound respect evident in his demeanor. "I'm willing to listen more. If you form this committee and present honest demands, early proposals for development can include preservation of your stories." Cheers erupted, voices rising to the roof like smoke signals. They had found a bargaining chip, a path forward, and it flicked alive in the air like a bright spark. They decided on dates, planned follow-ups, and secured platforms to amplify their voices. With each agreement, threads of their collective resolve strengthened, weaving a safety net under the dreams they held dear. As Michael left the hall that night, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. The world looked different, radiant with possibility. They could face the formidable tides together, he knew it. In the weeks that followed, as meetings solidified into a mighty force, he watched as neighbors became friends, as stories painted visions of hope, as each voice joined in a chorus of change. The community began to crystallize into the blueprint they wanted to build their future upon. And so, standing tall among his neighbors, Michael carved out a future for them all. They were more than just names in a proposal. They were a tapestry of lives intersecting with passion and power. Dreams were not mere whispers lost to time. They became grand symphonies harmonizing the resilience of their hearts. The sun began to set on their efforts. Michael gazed at the horizon. A wave of satisfaction washed over him. Yes, change would come, but their stories would remain. Together they had transformed fear into hope and purpose, a true testament to the power of community. But as he walked toward his home, a final thought lingered. This was just the beginning. They would always need to stay vigilant and keep the dream alive. For now they were winning. But there would always be a new fight down the road. And as he made his way home, with arms filled with the warmth of shared determination, he knew if they could weather this storm, they could weather anything that came their way, and they would always rise together. If you're feeling this momentum, here's what you need to do. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire real change. Leave a like now. Your support feeds the algorithm and helps our story reach even more people. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear your thoughts. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who you know need to see this incredible transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans know how important it is to spread the word. So let us get this message out there and keep the momentum rolling.